My child, come closer and listen. Let this old Daddy Amma tell you a story, not from a book, but from the wrinkles of my heart. This story is called, My Son Mood Me Eat Cold Sandwich in the Car with Their Dog. And no, it is not really about food. It is about silence, feelings, and love that does not speak in words. That day was cold, the kind of cold that settles inside bones. The sky was dull and the roads were quiet. My son was driving the car. His mood was heavy, like someone carrying a sack of stones on his chest. I sat in the back seat, watching him through the mirror, the way only a mother or a grandmother can watch. His eyes were open, but his thoughts were far away. Beside him, on the passenger seat, lay a paper-wrapped sandwich. It had been there since morning, untouched, forgotten. In the back seat, near my feet, sat his dog, loyal and calm. That dog had grown up with him, watched him laugh, cry, and fail. Animals know sadness before humans admit it. The traffic light turned red. The car stopped. My son picked up the sandwich, unwrapped it slowly, and took a bite. Cold bread, cold filling, cold taste. He did not complain. He did not smile. He just chewed, staring straight ahead. I wanted to tell him to wait and eat warm food at home, but I stayed quiet. Some moods do not want advice, they want understanding. The dog lifted its head and looked at him. No sound, no movement, just eyes full of concern. My son placed one hand on the dog's head while holding the sandwich in the other. That simple touch carried more comfort than 1,000 sentences. I saw his shoulders relax just a little. Son, I said softly, a cold sandwich fills the stomach, but warm words fill the heart. He did not reply, but I knew he heard me. Mothers always know. He broke a small piece of the sandwich and gave it to the dog. The dog wagged its tail slowly, grateful, present, loyal. The light turned green. The car moved again. The sandwich was half eaten, the mood still heavy, but something had shifted. As a Daddy Amma, I have learned that life often speaks in small moments. A quiet road, a cold sandwich, and a faithful dog can tell a deeper story than loud happiness. This was only the beginning, my child. What followed would change how I looked at my son forever. That night stayed with me, my child. Even after we reached home, my son's silence followed him inside the walls. He placed the car keys on the table, washed his hands, and sat down without saying much. The dog followed him everywhere, step by step, as if guarding something fragile inside him. I watched quietly, because a Daddy Amma learns when to speak and when to let silence do the talking. Dinner was ready, warm and fresh, but he barely touched it. Food tastes different when the heart is tired. He kept looking at his phone, then placing it face down, again and again. I knew something was eating him from inside, something heavier than hunger. After a while, he stood up and said he needed some air. He took the dog with him and went back to the car. From the window, I saw them sitting inside the parked car. The engine was off. The streetlight cast a soft, yellow glow. My son leaned back in his seat, closed his eyes, and let out a long breath, the kind people release when they are tired of being strong. The dog rested its head on his lap. No questions, no demands, just presence. Later, when he returned, his eyes were red, but his face looked lighter. He sat beside me and finally spoke. He told me about work pressure, broken expectations, people who only remembered him when they needed something. He said he felt invisible, unappreciated, like he was running without reaching anywhere. I listened without interrupting. Old ears have learned patience. I told him, son, even the strongest tree bends in storms. Feeling tired does not make you weak. He looked at me, surprised, like he had been waiting to hear that. Sometimes children forget that elders were once young too. I placed my hand on his and reminded him of all the times he had survived worse days. The dog sat near us, tail gently moving. It did not understand words, but it understood pain. That night my son slept peacefully for the first time in many days. I stayed awake longer, thanking God silently, because a grandmother's prayers are stitched into every breath. The next morning he woke up early. He made tea for all of us, something he had not done in a long time. He smiled at the dog, scratched behind its ears, and for a moment the heaviness was gone. Life had not changed overnight, but his heart had softened. You see, my child, that cold sandwich in the car was not just food. It was a sign. A sign that when life feels cold, we still move forward, one bite at a time. And sometimes, the quiet company of a loyal soul is enough to keep us going. This story was still unfolding. What happened next taught me something even at my age, that healing does not always come from solutions, but from being seen and heard. Days passed, my child, and life returned to its usual rhythm, but something inside my son had quietly changed. I could see it in the way he spoke to people, softer now, less rushed. The car rides were no longer silent battles with his thoughts. Sometimes he turned on old songs, the ones he loved as a boy. Sometimes he spoke to the dog as if it were an old friend who understood everything. One afternoon, we were driving again, just the three of us. The sky was brighter this time, but not too bright, like it was giving permission to hope. My son stopped the car near a small roadside shop. He came back with tea and paper cups and once again, a sandwich. This time it was fresh and warm, but he smiled and said, "Daddy Amma, do you remember the cold one?" I nodded. How could I forget? Some memories leave marks without pain. We sat inside the car, sipping tea. The dog sat between us, alert and happy. My son told me he had decided to slow down in life. Not quit, not run away, but breathe. He said he had realized that no success was worth losing himself. I listened, proud but silent. Advice given too early loses its value. He confessed that the night of the cold sandwich, he had felt completely alone, even surrounded by people. But the dog's presence and my quiet words had stopped him from falling deeper into his sadness. He said, "That day, I understood I don't have to fight everything alone." Hearing that, my old heart felt full. I told him a story from my own youth, something I had never shared before. I told him about a time when I, too, felt invisible, carrying responsibilities without appreciation. I told him how I learned that strength does not mean silence, and love does not always come loudly. He listened carefully, like a child again. The dog barked suddenly, chasing a butterfly near the window. We laughed together. That laughter felt healing. Laughter born from shared pain is different. It carries honesty. In that moment, I knew this family bond would hold, no matter how cold life became. When we returned home, my son cooked dinner himself. He set the table properly, even for the dog. "Everyone deserves a place," he said. That sentence stayed with me. Sometimes lessons come from unexpected teachers, even four-legged ones. That night, as I lay in bed, I thanked God again. I realized that stories are not meant only to be told, they are meant to be lived. The cold sandwich had become a warm memory, one that reminded us of care, patience, and presence. Remember this, my child. Life will often hand you cold moments. Eat them slowly, share them if you can, and never forget those who sit beside you quietly. This story was still moving forward just like us, one gentle step at a time. Time has a strange way of teaching lessons, my child. It does not shout. It whispers day after day until the heart finally listens. By the fourth part of this story, I had started noticing how my son was changing not just inside, but outside as well. He stood straighter, spoke more honestly, and learned to say no when his heart needed rest. One evening, he came home earlier than usual. The sun was still up, and the house felt surprised to see him so soon. The dog jumped with joy, running in circles like it had won a prize. My son laughed, a real laugh, the kind that reaches the eyes. That sound warmed my old bones more than any blanket ever could. He sat beside me and said he had taken a difficult decision at work. He had spoken up for himself, calmly but firmly. He did not fight, he did not beg. He simply stated his worth. He told me his hands were shaking while speaking, but his heart felt peaceful afterward. I held his face and kissed his forehead, because courage deserves blessings. Later that night, we went for a drive. Not because we had somewhere to go, but because sometimes movement helps thoughts settle. My son drove slowly. The windows were slightly open, letting cool air in. He stopped the car near a quiet park. The same car that once held silence now held conversation. He took out a sandwich again, smiled, and said, "This one is warm, Daddy Amma." We shared it between us, and of course, a piece went to the dog. Eating together felt different now. It felt like a ritual, a reminder of where we had been and how far we had come. I told him that life will test him again, maybe even harder next time. He nodded. He said he knew that sadness does not disappear forever, but now he knew how to sit with it without breaking. That wisdom does not come from books, it comes from living. The dog lay down peacefully, eyes half closed. I realized then that healing is often quiet. No celebrations, no announcements, just small changes repeated daily. That is how hearts mend. As we drove back home, I looked at my son and felt something close to relief. Not because his problems were solved, but because he had learned to respect his own feelings. A person who listens to his heart never truly gets lost. This story, my child, was teaching me too. Even at my age, I was learning that love grows when we allow each other to be human. And with that thought, I knew the journey was still continuing, gently, patiently, like the road ahead of us. By the fifth part of this story, my child, the season had begun to change. The air carried a different smell, as if the world itself was turning a new page. I believe human hearts follow seasons too. My son's heart was no longer frozen, it was learning how to breathe again. One afternoon, a small argument happened at home. Nothing big, just words spoken in tired voices. In the past, my son would have gone silent, swallowed his feelings, and escaped into the car. This time, he paused. He took a deep breath and spoke calmly. He explained what he felt instead of hiding it. I watched from the corner, my eyes moist with pride. Growth often looks ordinary, but it is powerful. Later that day, he took the dog and asked me to join him for a drive. The road was familiar, yet it felt new. The car had become our space of reflection, not escape. He parked near a lake where the water moved gently, never rushing. We sat there, windows open, listening to life. My son told me he had started noticing small joys again. Morning tea, quiet walks, the dog's excitement over simple things. He said sadness had taught him to appreciate peace. Pain, when understood, becomes a teacher. I nodded, because I had learned that lesson long ago. I shared with him how, after my husband passed away, I once felt lost too. I told him how I learned to survive by focusing on small routines and silent prayers. He held my hand, realizing perhaps for the first time that Dadi Amma also carried wounds beneath her calm smile. The dog placed its head on my lap, warm and trusting. In that moment, generations connected without effort.